absolutely detrimental climate crisis that has been hitting us day in, day out, not just with the mudslides that have been going on up in Vermont, but for those of you who have been paying attention to the heat index down here in South Florida, it has been hitting triple digits almost every day, and it's killing people. I would think that once people start to die as a result of the heat wave, that's a real problem that one is simply not going to be able to ignore. Now, the one member of MSNBC that I think is a fairly decent individual and tends to cover issues in as honest of a perspective as he can, considering the network that he works for, but he's also not an American, hence why he supports universal health care. But Ali Velshi, who we are hoping to eventually get on our show, put on a very, very powerful presentation, I believe yesterday, that we're going to play for you right now.
Decades of poor land management, land overuse, and drought contributed to the worst crop failures the nation had ever seen. And then windstorms began kicking up eroded soil, dirt, and dust. The storms became more frequent. They became bigger, soon having an impact on whole swaths of the middle of the country: New Mexico, Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Colorado. The farmers were fleeing in droves, desperate to escape the dust. This was the Dust Bowl. The federal response was slow and lackluster. In 1933, Congress established the Soil Erosion Service to combat the erosion that was fueling these storms. But within just 2 years, as dust storms more than tripled, the money was running out. The head of the Soil Erosion Service, Hugh Bennett, was desperate for greater federal government intervention. So in March of 1935, Mr. Bennett went to Washington, D.C. to give testimony to Congress about the consequences of the Dust Bowl. According to multiple accounts, Mr. Bennett's speech was well-timed. Just as he wrapped up his remarks, a massive dust storm from the Midwest reached Washington, D.C. A biographer of Bennett named Wellington Brink wrote about that day in 1935, quote, "Out of one corner of his eye, he noted the polite stifling of a yawn, but Hugh Bennett continued deliberately. Presently, one of the senators remarked, quote, 'It is getting dark. Perhaps a rainstorm is brewing.' Another ventured, 'Maybe it's dust.' 'I think you are correct,' Bennett agreed, Senator. 'It does look like dust.' The group gathered at a window. The dust storm for which Hugh Bennett had been waiting rolled in like a vast steel town pall, thick and repulsive. The skies took on a copper color. The sun went into hiding. The air became heavy with grit," end quote. Shortly after the Dust Bowl came to Washington, Congress passed the Soil Conservation Act unanimously. The act also established the Soil Conservation Service, which eventually became the National Resources Conservation Service, permanently housed within the U.S. Department of Agriculture. 90 years later, we're facing a different crisis. This summer, wildfire smoke has choked cities across the country week after week. Multiple heat waves are gripping massive swaths of the nation with no end in sight. In Texas, where the heat wave is entering its 5th week, emergency room visits for heat-related illnesses are surging. People are dying from the heat. And it's not new. Last year, Texas saw nearly 300 heat-related deaths. That number is likely an undercount. Last month, the heat wave made Texas one of the hottest places on earth, rivaling the Sahara Desert. Energy demands in the state smashed records. Now, just 2 years ago, you'll remember, energy demands during a winter storm in Texas pushed the grid past its capacity. Blackouts during that storm led to nearly 250 deaths in freezing temperatures. So during this current heat wave, the key reason Texas was able to actually meet the demand, the increased demand, and avoid prolonged, potentially deadly blackouts? Green energy. Solar and wind power are credited with keeping Texans' AC running as these temperatures have soared. And while Texas has invested heavily in what is proving to be life-saving renewable energy, Texas Republican Governor Greg Abbott is fighting those initiatives. When promoting a proposed tax incentive program for energy production in Texas earlier this year, Governor Abbott's big red line was that no renewable energy products be included because he wants to focus on dispatchable power, such as natural gas or coal. Right now, Most of the country is grappling with various heat waves. Models from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration estimate that 20% of Americans in the contiguous United States will experience dangerous temperatures this week. The worst of it will be in the Southwest. Phoenix has already seen temperatures above 110 degrees for 8 consecutive days. And weather models show the temperature surpassing 110 degrees every single day for the foreseeable future in Phoenix and other parts of the Southwest. If the forecast plays out as expected, this will be the worst and longest heat wave in America's history. We know that as a country and as a planet, we need to cut our emissions to try to limit the worst effects of climate change, but that's already happening. Last year, the Biden administration launched the first ever extreme heat response plan. It's a 10-point initiative to help the nation handle extreme heat waves. And as tens of millions of us will face this reality today and tomorrow and potentially all summer, we need the knowledge and the tools to protect ourselves and each other, because this is not an anomaly. This is our new normal.
The one issue with Ali's video is the biggest issue that the average person has when watching corporate media. He wants to absolve the Biden administration from their responsibility in accelerating the climate crisis. Yes, Governor Abbott in Texas is a complete and utter tyrant, and he sucks, and he's making it worse. But so is President Biden. And this, well, they outlined a 10-point plan. Who gives a damn? He approved the Willow Project. He approved the Mountain Valley Pipeline. He has approved drilling permits in 2 years, twice as many that Trump got through in 4 years. That's the problem with MSNBC, just as it's the problem with Fox News. They're all guilty of the same bullshit. All of it. Corporate special interests, which are funded predominantly by the fossil fuel industry, will tell you that a crisis is happening, but it's somebody else's fault. It's not our fault. We're doing everything we can to fix this problem. No, you're not. That's my take.
Okay, well, all I'm sitting here and thinking about is Reese, because Reese is out there in Scottsdale. So, yeah, I mean, they're not doing anything. They haven't done anything before. Why would we think they would do anything now? Oh, he has a plan. Biden has a plan. He has a 10-point plan. I'll say that's probably about as effective as Bidenomics. And I'm not going to hold my breath on his plan.
No, if you're going to really address what the issue is here and why, once again, if Bernie was president, this would be much more of a seriously attended to crisis, which it is, because it is a crisis. You can declare a national emergency, enact the Defense Production Act, and build out a clean energy grid, the likes of which have never been seen before. And that will include nuclear energy. But when it's wind, when it's solar, when it's geothermal, there are so many things that could be done to get us off of coal and natural gas, which is accelerating the climate crisis. And the reality is, and this is the sad truth about what we ultimately do as Americans, we are not in the business of preventing problems. We're in the business of fixing problems. Until the climate crisis is literally at our doorstep, where people, everyday people, and especially people with ways and means, are suffering as a result of this catastrophic heat, that's when eventually enough people are going to say, yeah, we got to do something about this.
Thanks for watching. If you want to support our mission to transform politics into service, please like this video, subscribe, follow us on social media, and consider joining our Patreon, where you'll get early access to our interviews as well as other exclusive content. Links are in the description. Peace out.